Good evening, hope you're well, and welcome to the classic yin sequence here at MYT Yoga. So you might be thinking to yourself, what the hell is a music production channel giving a yoga class on a Sunday evening? And the reason for that is because MYT is a holistic 360-degree platform of personal development as well as musical development for artists. So as much as we concentrate on things like sound design, music theory, arrangement, all of this stuff, it's equally important to concentrate on aspects of personal growth and personal development. And in that spirit, I recently qualified as a Yin Yoga teacher. So I've been a committed advocate of yoga and a yoga practitioner for 7.5 years, and over the summer the opportunity presented itself to qualify as an instructor, which was not something that I was planning, but it was an opportunity too good to miss, and it's become a massive part of MYT. We already have 5 classes up on the platform, on the course platform itself. And if you are a AAA member, then welcome as well. I think you know what you are letting yourselves in for. So for those of you who might be new, I am going to guide you through what I call a classic yin sequence. And that is literally going to be mostly lower body focused. So that's going to be on things like ankles, knees, hips, hamstrings, etc. But we're going to try and focus more on going into the connective tissues in the body, into the muscle fascia, into the fascia of the connective tissue, try and create a little bit of space, release a bit of tension, see the end of the week through with a nice relaxing release, and get you set up for a nice positive week. And a lot of these poses are hip openers and will help if you are sat in a chair with work all day. Maybe you're making music all day, maybe you spend long periods of time working and then working on music and just find yourself trapped in a little bit of a sedentary lifestyle. So you've probably got tight hips, tight knees, tight ankles, and this will help massively. And it all rolls into the ethos of MYT, as I've mentioned, that in order to become the best artist that you can be, you have to become the best version of yourself. And I've found yoga to be an amazing tool for that, both in terms of musical development, creative development, the development of my creative process, and also my personal and spiritual development as well. So without much further ado, let's get started. So we're going to start by moving into a all fours kind of position right here, like so. Now it's important to make sure that you've got a nice right angle between your calves and your thighs, and also as well you've got a nice, almost like a box type angle going on between your arms, your back, the thighs and the ankles. So again, you can almost like see a box shape kind of position. And where we're going to go first of all is we're just going to lean all the way back into a nice child's pose. Now you can have the big toes touching here, you can maybe even go a bit wider if you want, and we're just going to lean back, nice and simple. Let the buttocks touch the heels if they do. If they don't worry about it, it's not a problem at all. Just come back as far as is comfortable, and if you feel as if you can bring your head down to the floor, then ease your way down, forehead to the floor. And we're just going to tune in here a little and just arrive on our mats. We may have had busy, stressful weeks. We may be feeling a little bit distracted. This will just allow us to ground and arrive on the mat, ready to move from more of a thinking, doing, active phase into more of a witnessing kind of being state of consciousness. And as you're doing this, focus deeply and only on the breath. And breathe in and out only through the nose. And just bear witness to the inflow of breath through the nostrils. Allow the belly to become expanded. And breathe deeply into your diaphragm. And then witness and feel the breath leaving the body through the nostrils again. And just take 3 of those really deep breaths. And when you've completed 3 of those nice deep breaths, just bring your forehead up and then ease your way back up into that all fours position. Tabletop pose, as we like to call it. And from here, we're just going to maybe rock the hips from side to side a little bit. Bring a little movement. We'll do a couple of hip circles. Just find some movement that feels good, feels right, feels organic for you in this moment. Just allow the body to move in this position the way it would like. So now coming to a halt, we're now going to tuck the toes in and we're going to lean back once more. Get into the toes, make sure the toes are tucked under, and then we're going to easily lift the hips into a nice relaxed downward dog position. Don't worry about the ankles touching the floor, but feel free, because it's early in the class, to walk your dog. Bring a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of a stretch into the calves. Again, continuing to get some fluid movement into those hips, the ankles, the knees. And after you've done that for a little bit, just come to a nice still position, hips in the air, and create that nice little V shape. Taking a breath here. And now we're going to bring ourselves into our first pose, which is going to be a runner's lunge. And we're going to take the right foot up into a nice 3-legged dog. Don't worry about how high the foot gets. And then from there, just gently draw it through and have it land on the outside. As you can see here, the outside of my right hand. And from here, we're just going to slowly but surely bring down the left knee. And that will allow you to get into the hip flexors on this left leg, but also to the inside of the groin on the right side. And you might want to just stay here with a straight back, looking forwards, nice and relaxed now, because we're going to be spending a good couple of minutes here in this pose. So if you're not comfortable at this moment, you might want to make some adjustments. Adjust until you feel completely relaxed in the pose and you've found a nice edge to work from. And continuing to tune into that breath. As you sink deeper into the pose, just notice where you're holding on, where you're still feeling tension. Might be nice to close the eyes so you can really tune into what's going on inside your body. And from there, where you feel that tension, those places where you are gripping, where you're holding on, just slowly but surely let them go. And don't judge yourself for being in a certain state, in a certain position. Maybe you're not quite as deep into the pose as you would like. And that's totally fine. You are exactly where you are meant to be right now. Last 3 breaths now. Okay, so now we're going to keep with this right leg forward. We're going to do a little sequence all for the right hand side and then move to the left a little bit later on so it's nice and symmetrical. But what we're going to do from here is we're going to shift our left knees up just to make movement a little bit easier. You can maybe come off the knee if you need to. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this right foot and we're going to bring it to the opposite side of the mat. So you can heel toe it over if necessary, or you can grab it with your left hand and shift it over. Or in my case, I'm just going to move it over like so. And I'm going to create a little bit of an angle here. I mean, you can be completely perpendicular or wherever you feel comfortable. And we're going to go down into a pigeon pose, a classic Yin pigeon pose. And as you can see here, I'm just bringing my left leg down a little bit, straight back, looking forwards. And I'm just going to stay here for a moment, maybe come onto the fingertips. Again, this might be exactly where you want to be today based on how tight your hips are, how tight your knees are. I've been for a 10k run and done an hour of vinyasa flow yoga today already, so I'm feeling pretty tight, even though the yoga did me the world of good earlier today. I'm probably going to stay up here for the majority of the time, and that's totally cool. But as you feel like you're sinking a little bit deeper, if you do want to go further, there's a couple of different ways you can do so. We can come down onto our forearms, and we can lay our palms absolutely flat out, like so. Or we could come all the way down and gradually place our forehead onto the floor. If this is a little bit too intense for you, you can always use a prop. So you can get a block like this little half block I've got here, and you can place your elbows on top of it, and that can bring the floor just that little bit closer to you, and it just helps you find that edge. Yin Yoga is not about forcing the body into positions, it's about yielding, it's about surrender, and as I mentioned previously, it's about letting go of that tension in the body. And that takes time, and that's why these holds are in place for so long. And at any time you might feel any number of emotions come up in these poses. It's It's often more challenging than a more rapid, more yang style of yoga like vinyasa flow or other forms of exercise like running, for example. Often the hardest thing we find is to just sit still. So if you're experiencing anxiety or boredom or any number of different emotions, then it can be a little difficult to sit with, but allow them to just float away, witness them rather than interact with them and giving them value. Final 3 long deep breaths now. And as you come up from whatever position that you've chosen to be in, extend and straighten the elbows, remove any props. And what we're going to do from here is that we're literally going to roll towards the right. So you can see, just sit the right buttock down, bring that left foot around, and then just give the legs a little bit of a straighten. Maybe give it a little wiggle. It can be very normal to feel a little bit of tightness, a little bit of, like you're a lot older than you think you are. And that is part of the process where Yin Yoga is concerned. Now, from here, you can sit on a block, which is what I'm going to choose to do right now. And we're going to go into almost like a half shoelace kind of position. So I'm going to perch myself on top of the block. If you don't have a block, books are great. That's totally fine. Cushions, that kind of thing, always good as well as the bigger yoga bricks. They can also work. Find whatever works for you. Now we're going to take this right foot or this right leg and we're going to fold it over. As you hear the clicking of my knees, I'm going to fold it over our left leg. I'm going to try and get these knees relatively parallel, as you can see here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to straighten up, and we can stay here if necessary, or we can start the process of leaning down like so, and you can start to feel that intensity in the hamstring. So if you're like me, you do a lot of running, you do a lot of exercise, a lot of cycling, this can be unpleasant, shall we say. It can be quite intense, but it's worth it for how we're going to feel afterwards. Another way forward, that if you can keep a straight back, bring the arms up in the air and then slowly but surely move over and grab or reach for the floor. You can reach for the shins. If you're super flexible, you can reach for the feet. The most important aspect is that straight back. If you start rounding or crouching over, it can start to cause problems. Just keep the posture nice and straight. And again, come to that first point of resistance, that first edge, if you will, and just stay there. Don't blast through, just allow it to melt away. And it will. Just takes time. And at any moment, if you feel like you need to make an adjustment to either go deeper into the pose or maybe ease off a touch, then feel free to do so. The most important thing is that you are listening to your own body at this stage and at any stage. Last couple of breaths in this position now. And easing our way back up to a nice straight seated position. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to take the right leg and we're going to fold it back and to the side behind us. Now if you do have a block underneath your hips the way I have here, I'm just going to shuffle that over so it's predominantly underneath the left buttock, the left sit bone. And again, I'm going to try and keep the knees as close together as possible whilst keeping this bend out to the side here. Now, this can be pretty intense, so be very, very careful in this posture, and indeed in every posture, because there's two things that you don't want to screw with: God and your knees. And in this case, the knees definitely are not to be trifled with. So if you feel any form of stabbing pain or sharpness of pain in the knees, back off and make sure that you are in an appropriate position for you. So now I'm going to straighten up here, and slowly but surely I'm going to lean back. Now some of you might feel like you can come all the way down to your elbows. Some of you might want to stay here. Some of you might need to be a little bit straighter, like so. Some of you might just need to be sat up like this. It's totally fine. Whatever you need. And when you find that edge, you can possibly tilt your head back. Maybe roll the shoulders back a little bit as well. And feel that really deep stretch through the quads, top of the quads, and maybe through the knees to the ankles as well. Again, this is great for people who sit at desks all day, or people who do a lot of running. People have tight quads, quite difficult to stretch. Final 3 breaths in this position. Maintain that long, slow, deep belly breathing in and out through the nose. And now, slowly but surely, gently drawing ourselves up, lean to the left, release that right leg that we've done so much work on so far, and maybe just give the little toes a wiggle, rock the legs, kick them up and down a little bit, creating that blood flow through the right leg as we've created somewhat of a tourniquet effect in these poses. Now, the next pose, as I just shuffle the block out of the way, it's going to get all of the muscle out of the sit bones, so I'm nice and flat on the floor. And we're going to come into a cross leg position. Left leg first, then the right, and then we're going to go into a bit of a forward fold. So this is kind of an easier version of a double-seated pigeon. So we're going to bring our arms up over our heads. Feel free to bring the palms together. And then slowly but surely reach over and place our hands on the floor. Again, maintaining as much of a straight back as possible. Now, you may feel sensation in either groin, in either set of hip flexors, and that's exactly what we're aiming for here. This is a nice gentle release in both areas. Again, chin up, facing forward, keeping that back nice and straight. No real rounding of any description. And again, if you felt like you needed more of an angle, a bit more tilt, this is where the block can become a real asset. So it just gives you that little bit of a pelvic tilt. And over. And now move into the final 3 breaths of this position. And then coming up back to a nice seated position. Remove a block if you've been sat on one. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back into an all fours position. So you can do this a couple of different ways. You can simply move the legs to the side and move back. Or if your knees feel good and your ankles feel good, you can come over into that position. And we're just going to take some hip circles. Take 3 slow, deliberate, wide hip circles in either direction, both clockwise and anti-clockwise. And this will prepare us for the left side, which is what we're going to go into now. Okay, back into an all fours tabletop position. Ankles tuck under. We move back so the back side of the body can meet the heels. And then up into our downward facing dog. Feel free to walk that dog a little bit again. Get a little bit of looseness, a little bit of freedom in that movement. And when you're ready, come back to a still downward facing dog. Take a breath. And then bring the left leg up nice and high. Again, nice and comfortably high. And then bring it through slowly but surely down next to the left hand, but on the outside of it, as you can see here. And then from here we can shuffle that right knee back as far as we like into our runner's lunge on the opposite side. So we essentially repeat what we did on the right side on the left. And I'm pretty tight from my run today. I'm usually a lot further down in my runner's lunge, but that's totally okay. My body is telling me exactly where I need to be today. Our bodies are different, no matter how far into yoga we are. We have moments when we are super flexible and super supple, and others where we're a bit tight and a little more tense. Both are fine. They just give information as to where you're at right now. Just allow your body to be where it needs to be, and don't force or push into any position or any form of discomfort or pain. And breathe into any areas in your body where you're feeling that tension. You're feeling tightness or any degree of resistance. Use a breath as a tool to release those parts of the body. Last 3 breaths now in our runner's lunge. And we slowly come out of that. Tuck the right toes under, shuffle that right knee up a little bit to make it a little more comfortable. Again, reset the palms if necessary. And again, if necessary, bring that right knee up off the floor, create a bit of space, and bring this left foot across to the right hand side of the mat. Now what you might find here, as I do, I'm a lot more open in my left side than my right. And that might surprise you, especially if you're new to yoga, that we are actually asymmetrical beings. So we're going to be tighter on one side than the other, and generally it seems to be my left side is a lot more open than my right in yoga terms. So just use that as information. It's not right or wrong. It just is. And we can use it to improve our practice and create more balance in the body. So as we are here in pigeon, the straight back on the fingertips, we can also come down into the variation, as we call it, sleeping swan. And as you can see, I'm much more comfortable with coming all the way down to the forehead on the floor from the left side. So go to your comfortable edge where it feels challenging but not painful. And that's really where the magic happens in Yin Yoga. Focus on the breath. And really use this practice as a way of meditating, of bearing witness to the chatter of the mind. And allowing any thoughts that do pop in to just pass. Any muscular tension that comes up, or tightness or resistance, breathe through them. But if you are in any sharp pain or discomfort, then do back off again. We don't want to play with our knees. Last 3 breaths in this position now. And when you finish those 3 breaths, bring the forehead off the floor and slowly but surely come back up to a straight back, palms on the floor, elbows straight. Back to pigeon from sleeping swan. And then, as we did on the right side, we roll now to the left. Bring the sit bone to the floor and bring that right leg over. Straighten ourselves up on the mat, straighten up our legs, maybe just flick the ankles, flick the toes, give a little movement. And again, if you feel like you need the block, come to the edge of it once more. And now taking the left leg, we're going to fold over the right into this sort of half shoelace. It's also known as half cow pose. And again, with that straight back, you can bring those arms up over the head and then lean forward, bring the arms forward and come down to your own limit. Again, never forcing anything, never pushing, never striving, which is an amazing metaphor for life. When we push and we go against the flow of life, that's when we tend to get into problems. And just like in the studio and in our creative endeavours, if we force it, if we try and push too hard, if we try and strive, we tend to not create our best work. It's when we get into the flow that the great stuff happens. And that's what yoga is designed to allow you to do, to enter that flow state. Again, keep the ankle flexed, keep the foot flexed so you can really feel it in that hamstring. That nice stretch, as well as the outside of the left hip here. Last 3 breaths now. Slowly coming back up to a nice straight position. And again, we're going to just shift the left leg over, maybe shift the block over so it's underneath the right sit bone. And then we're going to take that left ankle and we're going to fold it over like so, keeping our knees as close together as possible. And creating that nice quad stretch, which can feel pretty deep, pretty intense. And it's very much so for me today. And again, down we go. Last 3 breaths in this position now. And again, just gently and slowly, carefully bring yourself back up to a straight back position. Roll to the opposite side, to the right now, and bring that left leg out. Remove the block for now, and again, give those toes a wiggle. Maybe rock the legs from side to side. Allow that fresh blood to circulate around the left leg now, as it did with the right. Just take a breath here, just to be with any sensations that you might be feeling at the moment. Absolutely no rush whatsoever. And now what we're going to do, we're going to go into a wide leg straddle, and this can be great for the lower back and for the inside of the legs again. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and face the camera, but you can stay in your position straight down the mat. I'm going to use the block for this because I just find it better with the little bit of pelvic tilt that it gives me. And I'm going to just sit on the block right on the edge, but I'm going to spread my legs as wide open as I possibly can. And this might be the position for you today. You might be feeling tightness in the hips, you might be feeling it on the inside of the glutes, the inside of the legs. That's totally fine. But if you want to come with me a little bit further and a little bit deeper, then please come and join me. So I'm keeping the back nice and straight. I'm going to bring the arms up over the head, and I'm going to lean forward as we have been doing all the way through the class. And I'm going to take my first 2 fingers and I'm just going to hook them over the big toes. And again, I can kind of come forward there. You could also grab the ankles, the back of the legs. If you're really super flexible, you could take the back of the feet. And here I just find it feels right for me here. And I'm getting a wonderful stretch down the inside of both legs here and the lower back. And I can keep the chin nice and straight forward. I can eventually just lower the gaze a little bit. That will give a little bit more of a stretch to the lower back. And it's totally fine to come out of a pose early if necessary as well. Also even leave the pose for a little while and then come back in. The only thing that matters is that you do what's right for you and your body in that moment. Last 3 breaths now. I'm going to take those 3 long, controlled, deep breaths through the nose, both in and out. And we're just going to come all the way back up into a seated position. Remove the block, which I've almost come off, which is okay if you did as well. It's definitely served its purpose. I'm going to just move back into the position down my mat, give things a little bit of a wiggle, a bit of a rotate. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to slowly lower myself to the ground. Make sure my lower back is fully seated. I'm going to bring, as you hear my very clicky knees, I'm going to bring my feet up to right by the buttocks, almost touching distance for my hands down by the sides. And I'm going to come into a very quick supported bridge just for a minute, and we're going to just lift the hips up off the floor. And if you want, you can bring the arms underneath the lower back to provide more support and get a little bit more movement and a bit of range. It's often nice to get a counter pose that bends the back after all the front side bending that we've been doing. In this position, you could also have your hands on the floor. You could bring the shoulders underneath, get a little supplementary shoulder stretch in there with interlocked hands. Do whatever feels right for you today. Just a couple more breaths in here before we enter into the final couple of poses. And we're going to just gently now rock down, try and keep the hips in the air to an extent, and lower and peel the back down onto the floor, vertebrae by vertebrae. Don't just collapse back onto the floor. Bring the legs all the way down. Let's have a little moment in Shavasana, dead body pose. And from here, you might want to roll onto your right side, like so. Use the top arm to push yourself back up into a seated position. And we're going to do a little forward bending now. Great hamstring stretch as one of our final poses. And what we're going to do is I'm going to use the block again just to create that little bit extra angle. Just lifts me off the floor a touch. I can then come up and then over, and again I can reach my feet with a pistol grip here, 2 peace fingers, or I can come all the way over and reach the backs of the feet. Now if that's not available to you, you can be here, you can even be here. One thing I find is very, very useful on the days when I feel a bit tighter is to use a strap. Now you could use a towel, it doesn't have to be a proper yoga strap or a yoga block like I'm using. It can be anything that allows you to essentially get a little bit more purchase. So you can just roll those over the backs of the feet. And that can often be good even for seasoned yoga practitioners. If you want to straighten the back a little bit more, that can be great. And then just sink a little deeper in. Again, feet flexed, which will allow you to get into the belly of the hamstring, which is exactly where you want to be. And again, always looking forward, chin up. That allows for a straighter back, better stretch, even allows the middle and the upper back to become more involved in that stretch. One day you could get so far forward you could probably touch your nose on your own toes. That's what I'm aspiring to anyway. Last 3 breaths now. And now just rolling back up, away from the legs, nice straight back. Remove any assistance that you have been using, straps or blocks. And now what we can do is we can maneuver ourselves on our mats to a position where again we can just roll the back all the way down to the floor and straighten the legs. Got 1 spinal twist left to go. A little meditation and we're done. So what we'll do from here is bring both of our knees up. We'll then come up and almost give ourselves a little bit of a hug, a little bit of a squeeze, maybe even bring the head up closer to the knees. And we're going to begin by taking the right knee, interlock our hands over the kneecap, over the knee. We're going to lengthen the left leg down, like so. And just for a few seconds, we're just going to try and aim to bring the right knee underneath the right armpit. So it's kind of like a pushing away, but upwards and inwards as well at the same time. Just breathe into that. Don't hang out here, just again, bring it up as far as you possibly can. Create a bit of space. And from here, what we can do is just bring that knee down to the left, and we can either tuck our toes just in the crease of the knee, or we can come all the way over whilst bringing the right hand over to the opposite side, and we can look right as our knees go to the left, and just feel that spinal twist, giving us that final release to the spine. Last couple of breaths now. And bring in that right knee all the way back. Come all the way back into the center. Just release that right leg for a second. Just allow yourself to arrive back on the mat for a sec. Or 2. And then bring both knees up again. You can wrap the arms over the knees. Give yourself a nice comforting Sunday evening squeeze. Then right leg nice and straight, interlock. The hands on top of the left knee, and again we can maneuver that knee closer towards the armpit, create that little bit of space for a few seconds. And then bringing that left knee over to the right, and again bringing that left arm over to the opposite side, looking towards the left as the knee goes to the right. Feel free once again to tuck the toes into the crease of the right knee here, or you can come all the way over like so for a more intense stretch. Coming into our last few breaths here now. And slowly unwinding back to the middle of the mat. Yourself nice and balanced on the mat with the arms by the side. Slip the left leg down into our final Shavasana. Where we can absorb all the benefits of the last hour or so. Allow the body to do what it needs to do. And just be the witness of yourself right now. And slowly but surely now bringing a little bit of awareness back into the room. Feel free to roll your wrists, wiggle your fingers, give your toes a little wiggle, and slowly bring your awareness back into the space. Bring your right foot up. So you tuck your ankles next to your buttocks and sit bones. And then bring your left arm up over your head and then push with that right foot over to the left. And be in this recovery position on the left for a few seconds. The left side is actually what's known as the Yin channel in yoga. And it really is the perfect complement, Yin Yoga, to the hecticness and the busyness of everyday life, as well as a great tool to meet with the uncertainty of the times that we currently face. Now feel free to use the top right hand to push yourself gently up, back into a seated position. Feel free to sit on a block if that's what you feel like you need. Anything that gives you a straight back. Now come into a nice easy cross legs position. Close the eyes over. Feel free to have your hands up, palms up or palms down, whatever is more comfortable for you. And just breathe and continue to absorb the benefits of the movement you've shared with me in the last hour or so. Bring your hands to your heart center and thank yourself for creating this little slice of time today. Thank yourself for committing to your own growth, your own betterment. This is just another step on the journey towards becoming the best version of yourself that you possibly can be, both musically, artistically, creatively, and as a human being. Really bear witness to yourself in that process and be so thankful for the opportunity that you've presented to yourself in your own life. To learn, to grow, to develop, and to be able to share what you've learned with others. It's truly how we can all make the world a slightly better place. Put your hands to your lips or underneath the chin and give gratitude for those learning processes that allow you to expand your ability to express ideas, feelings, emotions and experiences with ever greater clarity and with ever more certainty. And finally, bring your hands and your thumbs to your third eye center and thank yourself and give gratitude for your increasing awareness, intuition, and creative flow. Hands back to heart center. Final breath out. Namaste. So thank you for joining me for the last hour or so. I appreciate that it is maybe a little bit different to our usual programming here on MYT, and we are doing these yoga classes regularly on our MYT AAA program. Head over to www.transition.studio for more details. We'll leave a link in the comments as well, and feel free to drop any comments. If you're on YouTube joining us there, let us know about how you feel before, during and after this class. Do you feel raring to go and ready for another week of tapping into your creativity? If you're a AAA member, feel free to drop us a comment on Backstage or on the AAA members only Facebook group. So it's been an absolute joy and a privilege to guide you through these yin poses, and I hope you find as much benefit in them as I have done over the years and will continue to do so. Much love, take it easy and have a great week.